Alright, everything you wanted to know about matrices and more in about 10 minutes. Now remember,
Yeah, he's recording.
oh yeah, yes, you are on there. So, now as we look at these two matrices, these are both 2 by 2 matrices. And it's always row by column. Okay. Row by column. Right, and rows are horizontal and columns are vertical. Now when we add matrices, they have to have the same dimensions. And like this would be element 1 1, it's row 1 column 1. This would be element 1 1, row 1 column 1. We add those two together to get element 1 1 in the sum matrix, right? 3 plus 7 would be 10. 4 plus 6 would be 10. And 5 plus 8 would be 13. So when we added those two other matrices together, that's what we would get. Is 3, 10, 10, 13. Now, if they gave you something like 2, 3, 6, 4, 5, 7, and said to add that to 1, 4, 3, 7, this is no solution. And if they asked why, you would say not the same dimensions.
Would they ask why though on a math team?
Maybe not on the math team, but when you're taking the ACT, they may give you this and say that there is no solution and why. Okay. Let's see. Subtraction works the same way. Now to multiply two matrices together. Right. This is a 2 by 2 matrix, and this is a 2 by 1 matrix. These two dimensions have to be the same. In other words, the columns in the first matrix has to be the same as the rows in the second. And when we multiply them together, what we do is we multiply the first element and then the second element and add. So like this would become 9 plus 4. Now, since we've multiplied that first column through, we're done with that. Next we would go 3 times 2 is 6. 4 times 4 is 16. So the product matrix would be 13, 22. Okay. And we can check that out because the outside dimensions give us the dimensions of the product matrix. It should have 2 rows and 1 column, and here we have 2 rows, 1 column. Works out kind of nice. Now, if we multiplied a 2 by 2 matrix together by a 2 by 2, we should get a 2 by 2 matrix out. And I'm going to multiply that first row by that first column. 2 times 3 is 6. 4 times 2 is 8. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5 is 10. Now I'm done with that first row. And I get 3 plus 16, and then 2 plus 20. And that would give us 14, 14, 19, and 22 for the product matrix. All right. Now what they might also like to do is give you a matrix equation. They might give you something like that and say solve for x. Okay, if all we're looking for is x, you don't necessarily have to do all the multiplication. We can just do the row by the column. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3x, and that would equal 15. So then we solve for x, and we get x equals 1. Okay. So they oftentimes like to do that. Now another aspect of a matrix that they like to ask you to find is the determinant. And they would denote that with a DET. And to find the determinant of a 2 by 2 matrix, you multiply along the left to right diagonal down, and then subtract off the product of the other diagonal. So the determinant of this matrix is -2. Okay. A determinant is always just a single number. Okay. Right, we did something like that, we get 3 minus 8, which is -5. Now that's a 2 by 2 matrix. The determinant of a 3 by 3 is a little different. So if we looked at this matrix, I always look at element 1, 1 first, and think of that as a coefficient. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about crossing off the first row and the first column. And then look at this matrix, the 5, 2, 4, 2, as a 2 by 2 matrix. And finding the determinant that way. Now the second one is always minus. I look at this. And I go -2. And this time, along with canceling out the first row, this time I look at the middle column, and I look at the 2, 2, the 3, and the 2, like it's a 2 by 2 matrix, and I find the determinant by going 4, 6. And then I go plus. And this time I'm looking at that third element up here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cross out again that first row, and this time the third column. And I've got +3. Okay, I have absolutely no idea why that's. There we go. +3. 2 times 4 is 8, minus 3 times 5 is 15. Okay, so that gives us 2 plus 4 plus, that's going to be -14. And the determinant then is -8. Okay. And that should get you through a bunch of matrixy stuff. Any questions? Nobody has questions. Nobody wants their voice on audio.
No.
Thank you, Bennett.